Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime. Welcome in. Appreciate you so much for joining me on Buckeye Huddle Primetime. It has been a while since we've done a Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Since before Ohio State was forcefully ejected from the playoffs by Miami. Called that one wrong, guys. Called that one wrong. I had 28-14 Buckeyes. You know, the beauty of the season ending so abruptly when it did is the portal started immediately to kind of take our minds off of that, which gives us an opportunity to both get really excited about the potential of new guys coming in, also really angry about some guys leaving if you're the type that gets angry about certain guys leaving, and certainly a lot of people have. But there are some exciting portal targets, and we can talk about them. If you guys got any that you want to talk about, if you have something that you want me to read in the comments section, make sure you hit the question mark. The Buckeyes coaching staff, want to look at them kind of position by position. As Cortez Hankton hired as the wide receivers coach, biggest question now on the staff, to me, offensive coordinator. Going to be an internal hire, going to be an external hire. We will get to that today, but I'd love to ask you to please like the video if you could and subscribe to Buckeye Huddle. If you have not yet, that is the currency by which we operate here in this YouTube space. We need those subscriptions from you guys here at Buckeye Huddle, where we pump out the best and most Buckeye content in the entire country. So please subscribe to the channel if you could. Ohio State averages 17 and a half guys that head out of the program into the transfer portal every year. I think every year come portal time, when we start seeing the names pop into the portal, people forget that. But when I looked at this roster ahead of time, I said, I don't think they're going to hit that average this year. Well, they got 17 so far. Definitely going to go over that. So I was wrong about that. But certainly a different kind of portal year so far. And I think what we're seeing represents a bit of a philosophical change from the Ohio State brass. We've never seen very highly rated guys or guys that were expected to potentially compete for a starting job enter into the portal. Guys like Jelani Thurman and Mylan Graham and Aaron Scott and Bryce West. We've not seen guys like that head out. And I think what we're seeing here is the reason we're not going to see CJ Hicks kind of guys anymore, sticking around through 4 years, having not played. Those guys, those top 50 recruits, each one of those guys, Bryce West, Aaron Scott, Mylan Graham, top 50 guys heading into year 3. And if you are one of those guys rolling into year 3 and you don't make the coaching staff confident that you can be a high-level starter and you want to be paid like a starter, the answer there is, as a coaching staff, I can go pay somebody out of the portal that I know, in fact, can start at a high level because I can see it on his film, or I can pay this guy that, and I'm not quite sure he can. And I think in the past, Ohio State used to defer to the continuity and the development of keeping those guys in the roster, keeping them in the fold. But now that money, it's gotten a lot higher. It's spread a lot more thin. And you also don't have the spring portal. And I don't think you can take the chance anymore. I don't think you can take the chance to roll the dice that these guys, look, Aaron Scott got beat by Devin Sanchez, right? Got beat by a kid younger than him. Bryce West has been in the defense as long as Lorenzo Styles. He had every opportunity to win that job and make you more confident. Didn't get on the field much. And I know there's a lot of people really irritated about this, and I get it, but I don't know what you expect Ohio State to do in this situation. They got to go bring in guys they're confident that can start. The Mylan Graham thing really surprised a lot of people. Mylan Graham, a 5-star wide receiver who is a tremendous athlete. We watched him in the spring game. The guy moves like a deer, tremendous athlete without the ball in his hands or with the ball in his hands. You got to catch the ball first. We didn't see a whole lot of that. Did not see Mylan Graham when he had the opportunity catching a whole lot of footballs. The one game I think that he got a really big audition was the UCLA game. He ran the wrong routes. And this is a guy that got the Ryan Day kiss of death over the year. When Ryan Day says in press conferences things about a guy like, he's been practicing better lately, kiss of death, man. The guy's gone. Saw it this year with Jelani, saw it with Mylan Graham. If he says that about you, keep that in mind. You ever hear him say that? That dude's out of here. That dude's gone. We also saw him get passed over by David Adolph, a walk-on. So not too heartbroken over that, though I won't be surprised if we do see him pop off somewhere at his next stop in a couple of years. But you can't afford to keep a guy like that around making good money, because a 5-star at that kind of ranking is going to demand good money. If he's not going to get it from you, he's going to get it from someone else if he's not producing and he's not in the plans. Now, we did see a couple of guys move on that have found a new destination already, starting with Lincoln Keenholz, who is going to be at Louisville with Jeff Brom. I think that's a great spot for him, and I think that there's going to be a whole lot of Buckeye fans rooting for him. That's a guy who probably the best guy to give him a shot at making it to the NFL as a quarterback. Louisville, also a team that shows up on a lot of like Thursday night games. So we'll get to watch him, and that's pretty fun. Hicks has decided to go with Hartline down to South Florida. That's probably a really good destination for him too, to be able to get on the field in the group of 6 and potentially show out. So I'm sure everybody wishes him the best as well. But when we look at that Ohio State class of 2024, the guys that just finished their second year, there are now 11 out of the 22 signees who have exited out of the program. There's a couple more in there that might leave too. And I think we're going to roll in to next season with more than half of that class gone, which is unbelievable. And I think that what we're seeing now, Ohio State was able to hold off these issues longer than anybody else. We talked about this nonstop. The culture at Ohio State, we've not seen the crap that a lot of other programs have had to deal with. And now we're at the point where it's caught up to Ohio State, and it was always gonna. And it's a lot different. It's a lot different. It feels weird. What is the best strategy moving forward? If we look at the Ohio State class that they just signed, the one that you just signed, I think that I would have done things a little differently had I known this was coming this year. I think I might have done things a little differently, and maybe we'll talk about what might be done differently in the future on Wednesday's show. But today, I want to talk about that ejection from the playoffs. I want to talk about that Miami game and the end of the season before we get into these coaches. The season ended with an undefeated regular season and a win against Michigan. And I think when we talked at the beginning of the year, if I just said, based on the expectations, if we can get out of this with a regular season, undefeated, win in Ann Arbor, would you take it? Would you sign up? I think a lot of us would have signed up and said, yeah, give me that. I'll take that, coming off a national championship season in a year that looked like somewhat of a rebuilding year. In 26 looked like the year that maybe you were going to make the run at the national championship. Well, you had everything kind of come together in a way that maybe you didn't project it would come together as quickly. You had guys really pop off in maybe a way you didn't expect them to pop off. And as you see that, your goals change. And your goals change because then you realize, all right, 26 isn't going to be the year, because a lot of these guys are going to be gone to the NFL that we thought would have been around in 26. So the goals changed from 26 being that target year to 2025 is actually that year. They're going to have a run to win a national championship again in 2025. And your goals change, your expectations change, and then you get to the end and it's a huge bummer. You didn't reach the expectations. I thought for sure this team was a Final Four team, and they don't get there. And that's a real bummer. But looking back at the season, forgetting how it all ended, it's a pretty successful season. It's a pretty successful year. And it's certainly one that after some time passes and you forget the way it ended, you probably feel pretty good about it, I think, right? Maybe you will. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into that, but I want to talk about the 10 questions that I had before that Miami game because I just stumbled upon them right before I was about to start the show. And I want to go over these 10 questions. Pre-game, I do 10 questions. A lot of people do like bold predictions, right? I do 10 questions, and then I go over in the post-game show and I answer the questions. I've not talked about this game since I did a 20-minute reaction video immediately after the game. And immediately after the game, we're all very emotional. So it wasn't organized enough to answer my 10 questions that I usually answer in the post-game show. But I want to go over them now. Because to be honest, I'm done talking about the portal today. It's just been a lot of portal stuff. So question number 1, would Caden Curry pop off? Would Caden Curry pop off? Watching Caden Curry all year was an absolute treat. He was a maniac. And when we see Caden Curry pop off early in a game, we know there's more coming. We saw it against Indiana. And if Caden Curry was going to pop off on Miami, I didn't think there was any way Miami could have won that game. And Caden Curry doesn't just get shut down the entire game, but he goes after the game and gets interviewed. And I get it. He's upset, lost his last game at Ohio State. But he said something that I can't stand when our players say, and I think it's disrespectful. You know, we'd have won this game 9 out of 10 times, something to that effect. That's not a direct quote, but that's what he said. 9 out of 10 times we would have won the game. And I don't know what game he was playing in, but the game I watched, Ohio State wasn't winning 9 out of 10 times. Wasn't happening at all. They got their butts whooped at the line of scrimmage, and Caden Curry was part of that as he was pretty much look, he got close to the quarterback one time. It was a pretty lousy performance, and that's a bad look when you come out and say that afterwards. Question number 2. Edric Houston, we came into this season, a lot of us, myself included, thinking that Edric Houston was going to roll into this year with the pedigree that he had and the way he finished his freshman year after moving inside from edge, that he was going to be a pretty rock solid 3-tech. And unfortunately, that is not what happened. Edric was, I feel like, lost some confidence, wasn't playing good early in the year, was kind of getting manhandled even against MAC teams. The Ohio game might have been his worst. And he lost his starting role, lost his starting job to Ty Malone, who thankfully took the next step this year for himself in his final year. But Edric comes on a little later in the year. And my question was, Edric Houston, would he give us confidence heading into year 3 that he would be the guy? He made some big plays against Miami. He had some really bad plays again. When we look at next year's roster with Edric Houston, Jarquez Carter, freshman Damari Simeon, Jason Moore, how do you feel about this group? How confident are you in Edric starting? How confident are you in those backups? I don't feel great about it. Certainly not from that game. And I'm kind of hoping that a 3-tech comes in the portal. We do have some visitors at 3-tech, and I'm happy about that. Question number 3, Miami's wide receivers. Could the Buckeyes shut down those Miami's wide receivers? If they did, I thought they'd win. Now, they shut them down. They didn't win. Question number 4, could they hold Mark Fletcher under 4 yards a carry? They definitely did not. They did not. In fact, we all talked about Sonny in his entire season that he had not had a missed tackle, right? And that was an unbelievable stat. And we talked about the matchup with Ohio State playing a lot of the penny front, the 5-man front with just Sonny as a linebacker. What it does is create a matchup where Sonny meets a linebacker or meets a running back in a hole one-on-one. And I'm sitting here talking before the game saying, look, if you're going to give me Sonny versus Mark Fletcher, I'll take it all day. Sonny hasn't missed a tackle all year. And literally the very first carry, Mark Fletcher smacks into Sonny Styles, and Sonny bounces right off of him. And there goes the streak. Sonny gives up his first missed tackle. And while they did a pretty good job holding Mark Fletcher down, still didn't hold him under 4 yards a carry. Julian's saying over or under 4 20-plus yard passes. Over the year, he averaged 3.3 balls over 20 yards. My thought was that Ohio State would definitely win this game if he was over that mark. And he ended up taking 7 shots down the field of over 20 yards, converted on 3 of them. And it turns out that might have been too many. Number 6 and 7, we'll roll these in together. Phil Daniels and Gabe Van Sickle. Obviously, 2 guys. Gabe coming in for Tegra. Phil Daniels did not play good against Indiana, did not play good against Purdue or Wisconsin, one of those 2, where he gave up like 6 pressures. The team gave up 11, and doesn't do good with movement, doesn't do good with a lot of movement at all. But also when he's facing a really good pass rusher, he doesn't do good on an island. Really good run blocker. But immediately right off the rip, Miami puts Bain and Messidor on the same side, right in front of those 2. It was bad. It was real bad. And that Miami dominated those guys for the first half. Van Sickle makes it 1 half. I thought that was too long. I thought Ohio State waited way too long to go to Padilla. He definitely was not ready for that stage. And, you could say a lot of things about how that was handled all year. Should he have been playing more earlier on? Probably. But a lot to talk about with that offensive line, a lot to talk about with Tyler Bowen moving on into next year. Question number 8, the JJ factor. We heard JJ talking behind the mic before this game. JJ was super excited to play his guys. And my question was, would JJ just turn it on and go Superman and absolutely destroy worlds? Because he's certainly capable of that. And he kind of did. He kind of did in the game. He was also responsible for a pick 6. And another missed block before that where he just didn't appear to be giving his all-out effort. Wasn't getting chippy like he said he would. And turns out he's just human. Question number 9. Would Ohio State at least force a stalemate on special teams? I don't need them to win special teams. I just need them to force a stalemate. We all know this, unfortunately, this thing I don't even want to talk about ever is somehow consistently a conversation with our favorite team, special teams. Always a conversation. Would they just force a stalemate? Would we not see things like James Peoples bringing a kickoff out of the end zone to the 15-yard line? Would we not see a penalty on a punt that forces them to repunt and loses 20 yards of field position in a very crucial moment in the game? Would we not see them miss a crucial field goal while Miami makes their crucial field goal? And Ryan Day rolled out Jaden Fielding again. And I don't care if Jaden Fielding makes 90% of his field goals in practice and Jackson Corville only makes 70. What we know, we've established as fact, Jaden Fielding could not kick under pressure, and you rolled him out again. And Miami made theirs. So no, there was absolutely not a stalemate in special teams once again in a big game for Ryan Day's team. Cannot believe it, man. I just can't believe that you can't force a stalemate in special teams. Final question. The final question, and I asked this one for weeks leading into the Indiana game. And this, look, everybody made excuses about this for the Indiana game, but Ryan Day came out and said, when it's time to step on the gas, we will step on the gas. Didn't happen in the Indiana game. And people were telling me, well, it didn't happen because he really meant the playoffs. This one's not important enough. And the question about stepping on the gas that he was asked on that show, the Pat McAfee show, was in regards to how he chose to play offense the entire year. Slow, methodical, very low possessions. And it felt like in a lot of the games they were playing with one hand behind their back and saying they didn't want to play for style points. They weren't worried about that. They're worried about the amount of plays. And my concern was, if you play like this the entire season, when you go to turn on the gas, the car is going to sputter. because you practice how you play and you play how you practice. And when you treat many of your games like practice, by the way, I hated the schedule. I thought the schedule was a huge disadvantage for Ohio State to have a schedule with so many games in a row at the end of the year. When you're such a huge favorite, creates bad habits, and the coaching staff, quite honestly, treated them like scrimmages, tried a lot of different things. You had the whole tight end stuff coming back at the end of the year again. And the entire philosophy of playing slow, not beating people down, not having a killer instinct offensively, never running tempo. When you play like that all year and you don't play any of that all year, you don't have confidence when you need it, when it matters most. And in the end, when it was all said and done, stepping on the gas was 24 points in the final 2 games. So no, they definitely could not step on the gas. And I hated this offensive philosophy from the beginning. I know it is the antithesis of how you should play as the more talented team. A lot of people praised it as genius. Who I'm now hearing say, maybe that wasn't the best idea. No, it's a terrible idea. And it's cool if you get to the national championship game and your guys are a little more rested than your opponent, but you also got to get to the national championship game where you did it all for nothing. And as it turns out, they did it all for nothing. People told me I was an idiot for not seeing the vision. It's a bad strategy, man. If you want to rest your starters, pull them early. Pull them earlier. I'll also say this. If you play a game when you are shrinking the game with very limited possessions, you better have a good field goal kicker because he's a lot more important now. You've made him a lot more important. And Ohio State had an opportunity in the portal today to sign their number 1 portal target at kicker, and they didn't sign him. They let him walk. He goes to Texas A&M. He wanted more money than they were willing to pay him. I think that's a mistake, particularly if you're going to plan on playing like this. That remains to be seen, though. But people talking about the strategy working in 2024. You know what worked in 2024? An excellent ground attack. That's what worked. 2 stud NFL running backs. That's what worked. Running the ball to open up your passing game. That's what worked. And that's not the offense they had this year. The strength of their offense this year was throwing the football. They didn't play to their strengths. Julian Sayans should have been a 4,000-yard passer. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate should have had 1,500 yards apiece. That's what this offense should have looked like all year. And not only do they not play to their strengths all year, they goofed around in 5 or 6 separate games with the ridiculous amounts of 13 and 14 personnel. And as far as the plan to beat Miami, we talked about this last week. The plan to beat Miami was not to pick on their cornerbacks long. That wasn't the plan. You never had the protection to be able to do that. The plan was the Louisville plan. We literally talked about this on the last show. The highlights of the Louisville game, they beat Miami by getting the ball out of Miller Moss's hands fast on timing routes, slants, quick outs. We saw almost none of that. Almost none of it. The defensive linemen for Miami had no chance to get to Miller Moss because the ball was already gone. Ohio State's game plan, and they showed it to us early, was long developing routes going deep. Now, when you saw early that that wasn't going to work, why wasn't there a pivot to the Louisville game plan? Why? No pivot. Poor adjustments. Couldn't adjust during the game. They adjusted at halftime. I don't know why you need to wait to halftime. I don't know why. What's the deal with that? Why do you need to wait to halftime to adjust things? That should not be the case when the head coach, an experienced head coach, is the guy on the sticks. They knew Miami was a bad matchup for them up front. It was blatantly obvious what you needed to do to counteract that pass rush. Why didn't they do it? And it just sucks, man. It all sucks so bad because it feels like you let one of the best defenses in school history slip away and you don't even make the Final Four. But what really sucks for me is the entire year I've been saying that I want Georgia. I want Georgia. I want Ohio State, Georgia. I don't care what round it's in, because I want Ryan Day to have the opportunity to beat Kirby Smart and take over the mantle officially as the best head coach in college football, because that's what I thought he was. And I've been saying it all year long. And after watching the decisions that he made with this offense of the year and the way he chose to do that, run this Ferrari like it was going through a school zone, and then the way I just watched his coaching staff get out coached in the final 2 games of the year when it mattered most, I can't say that honestly to myself anymore. He's a very good head coach. He's my head coach. I like him being my head coach. But he's not the best coach. He's not. He's a national championship coach. He's not better than Kirby. He's not. So it sucks, man. The whole thing sucks. He was not the same guy that came out in the playoffs last year with his back against the wall. You remember that speech he gave at the beginning of the Tennessee game? You remember the face he had on when he came out against Tennessee? We didn't see that guy. We didn't see that guy. And now it's over. No sense of urgency at all in the second half of that game. Like, what was that? 3 possessions in the second half of that game. And this is after they do a 2-minute drill at halftime, right before halftime, which was the only way they could move the ball. And they moved it right up the field. And they never ran any tempo in the second half. And he was asked about it after the game and said, oh, we did it here and there and it wasn't working. What are you talking about? He didn't. Unless his definition of what that is vastly different from the rest of ours. No, you did not. You did not. But we move on to the following season. And as we are now in the offseason already, how he decides to handle what he's going to do offensively could change everything and change everything really quick. And the biggest question right now, the offensive coordinator, is this going to be a in-house hire, or is he going to go outside the program? I hadn't really considered for a second that this was going to be an in-house hire, but I've been seeing a lot of people talk about that recently. Saw it on social media, heard somebody else mention it in media. And I'm like, do people really think this is going to be an in-house hire potentially? Potentially a Keenan Bailey or a combination of Keenan and Tyler Bowen? Because I don't think that's an option. And some people were saying, well, he hired Cortez Hankton at wide receiver coach, and we'll talk about Cortez. That makes him the 10th countable coach, and that's true. But that doesn't mean you can't hire an offensive coordinator. The rule now, unlike before, and this was the rule last year. What did we see last year? We saw coming into this year, Ohio State hires a couple of extra offensive line coaches because now they don't have to pay Chip Kelly. You got Hartline, your offensive coordinator, is also your wide receiver coach. So the Chip Kelly salary goes off the coaches pool. Now we can take that money and parlay it into replacing Justin Fry with Tyler Bowen and bring in Marcus Johnson and Charlie Dickey to help him on the offensive line. You only got 10 countable coaches that can travel and recruit, but you can pay as many coaches as you want. And for all the irritation a lot of Ohio State fans have about what Ohio State does or does not spend with player acquisition, one thing that we always can be grateful for is when it comes to coaches, they don't skimp. They don't skimp on the coaches pool. They don't skimp on paying the head coach, coordinators, something we never have to worry about. And a lot of schools do. So that's a big time benefit. And I absolutely think that this offensive coordinator hire is coming from outside the building. But if it doesn't, that would be rough, man. An internal hire, I think that we see a lot of people who cover the team or like when Hartline was first announced to USF, I feel like I heard everybody say Keenan Bailey will step into the wide receiver coach. I didn't think that was happening for a second. I don't think that. I think it's a very important situation when you are rolling from the greatest position coach ever into his replacement, that you got someone that the next dude's coming in have some chops, right? You got to have chops. And yes, Keenan Bailey knows how to coach wide receiver, but if I'm that 17-year-old, Keenan, who? Like, I'm sorry, you're just not the dude that's going to impress me. And Cortez Hankton is a guy who, as an undrafted free agent, played 6 years in the NFL. That's maybe more impressive than a guy who got drafted in the first round. So, yeah, that dude who just coached 12 years in the SEC at LSU in Georgia. I never thought that was going to be Keenan. Last year, we saw it with the defensive coordinator. We heard nonstop that it was probably going to be Matt Guerrieri and Tim Walton, some combination there. And Ryan Day went out both outside the program for both of those hires. I think the same thing will happen here at offensive coordinator. And what do we think here as far as who's that going to be? I have no clue. I think one thing Day has shown us is, number one, he's done a really good job hiring. Really good job. Number two, we never know who it's going to be. Any kind of stupid hot board people put together, it's never anybody even close. But I think that he understands that conceptually he needs something added here. He needs somebody who brings in something that he doesn't have. Keenan Bailey's learned everything he knows from Ryan Day. When we look at Chip Kelly, he comes in. Yeah, Ryan Day's from the Chip Kelly tree, but Chip picked up a lot more in the time they were apart, and Chip brought in a lot of new stuff. Bill O'Brien would have brought in a lot of new stuff. And Ryan Day's offense is the Ohio State offense, and Ryan Day needs help. The offense is lacking. The offense is stale. It needs new concepts. And we see this with every guy who we consider at one point a great offensive mind. We see it with every single guy. They get surrounded by their guys for a long time, and it gets stale eventually. And we saw it with Urban Meyer, who was at one point thought to be an offensive revolutionary guy. And the big loss against Clemson, and all of a sudden he's looking for help, and he brings in Ryan Day to add to his offense. And to me, we're at that point now. Ryan Day needs an outside influence to assist him in moving this offense forward. And if he were not to hire an outside offensive coordinator here, if it was an internal hire, that would not happen. It would be the absolute worst thing for this program in my mind. I'd be devastated if I heard that, because the guys in charge are the guys who just coached that game against Miami, which they thought, keep in mind, against Indiana and Miami, that they had a really good plan going in. That's what they thought. They've said that. I don't think they did. And I think that we're going to see Ryan Day hire an outside offensive coordinator. And I think that we're going to see him make another big push here as he finishes what I think is going into the final chapter of his career as Ohio State's head coach. He's been the head coach at Ohio State for 7 years now. That is how long Urban Meyer was the head coach at Ohio State. And he was even here 2 years prior to that. 9 years at one place, 7 years as the head coach at a place like this, a pressure cooker that ages you like the president. I think he's entering into the final chapter, the next 3 to 5 years, the final chapter of his tenure as Ohio State's head coach. He needs some help. He knows that. And I think that we're going to see an interesting hire at offensive coordinator. And I think that he does not want to babysit at offensive coordinator. When we look at what Hartline did this year, Ryan Day was babysitting, no doubt about it. And you do that, and the payoff when you promote somebody internally, the payoff is year 2. Because year 1, I've now taught you how to do everything perfectly. Now you know everything. Year 2, I can step back and you can run it. Ryan didn't get year 2 because Hartline left before year 1 was over, to be quite frank. And that's a real bummer, man. And some people will point to that as one of the reasons why this all kind of derailed, went off the rails. And maybe they're right. I don't know how much it had to do with it. I just know that before before the final two games, my thought was, I feel better about Ryan Day coaching plays, so I'm good with this, whatever. It didn't turn out that way. But let's go over right now the coaching staff, starting with Matt Patricia, who getting some NFL interest maybe. What's he going to do? Certainly had a great first year at Ohio State. Also had great talent to work with. Also ended very poorly, right? That was a terrible game by him. His defense didn't give up a lot of points, but it wasn't anything like what we had seen them play before. They could get off the field against anybody. They couldn't when it mattered against Miami, which was a very basic offense that they should have been able to, quite frankly. They should have been able to get off the field. They couldn't. Gave way too much free stuff to Carson Beck. And regardless of that, yeah, you want him back. Where is he going to go? I don't know. He seems to be a guy that has a super affinity for the NFL. If he gets offered a defensive coordinator position, I would bet that he'd probably take it. You know, we talk about these guys and settling down, and this guy seems like he feels comfortable. Who wants to move and all that? Like, these dudes are just a transient bunch, man. When you have had as many jobs in as many different towns as these guys have, I don't put it by any of them to move, even if they look comfortable. Hopefully he's back. Hopefully you can at least get 2 years out of everybody. And I hope that Ryan Day is now starting to get the 2-year commitment like Urban used to. When we look at the secondary, when we look at Matt Guerrieri, how did Matt Guerrieri's safeties perform this year? Excellent. He'll be back next year. His recruiting class with Blaine Bradford and Kamari Bing, Simeon Caldwell's excellent. Cornerback Tim Walton, IGB played great this year, and Walt got the penalties out of him. No more penalties for IGB. Dude was fantastic all year. Hate seeing him go. Jermaine Matthews in his first year as the official starter was okay. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, admittedly, and I do love Main Man, but, you know, it wasn't perfect. Definitely not off to the NFL. He'll be back. When we look at his recruiting class with Jay Timmons, Jordan Matthews, very good, but fell short of his numbers again. Wanted to get a third, did not get a third. And when we go back now, because he's only taken 2 every year, when we look at the class of 23, 24, and 25, the only guys he's still got out of those classes are Jermaine Matthews and Devin Sanchez. All the rest are gone. All of them. And now the cornerback room has to go spend some money in the portal to replace them because Aaron Scott and Bryce West didn't give them confidence that they could pay them the money and they would be top-tier starters. At linebacker, a fantastic job by James Laurinaitis, albeit with players he didn't recruit, but a fantastic job this year. His recruiting class, Sincere Johnson, CJ Sana, Braxton Rembert, good. And it's kind of like the down year without the super big investment. Next year, I think they'll invest more in the linebacker room with Quentin Cypher, and I think they're going to get another top 10 linebacker as well. But a loaded room. Do you need a transfer? Do you feel comfortable relying on Peyton Pierce, Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford as your next 3 up? There's a big lack of experience there. Remains to be seen whether or not they're going to bring in a linebacker to assist those guys. Defensive line. Very good job by Larry this year. Could we hear news about Larry and his future? It's interesting. The contract's over. Does he re-up for another 2? 73 years old now. Still recruiting guys for the class of 27. Just landed the #1 defensive end in the country. Do we hear something about that anytime soon? We could, maybe not. A lot of times they don't say anything about it because they know it's a big talking point. But the line this year, the defensive line played very well. Obviously, Caden McDonald was a wrecking ball. Caden Curry was a wrecking ball. Edric Houston needs to continue to improve. And Kenyatta Jackson, will he be back? Will he be back? Will he go to the NFL? Some people are trying to float that potentially he goes into the portal. I would be shocked if that happened at this point. I would not have been shocked if it happened 2 years ago or last year. If he went into the portal now, wow, that would be something. When we talk about the recruiting class, love it. You got Kari Wilder, who I think is the next great defensive lineman at Ohio State. Dre Quinn, the other defensive end. And on the inside, 4 defensive tackles in Damari Simeon, Darius McKinley at 3 tech, Emmanuel Ruffin and Jameer Perez at 1 tech. Love it. The problem is there were a couple of years where you got, for instance, the Edric Houston class, right? Dominic Kirk's now gone. Just Edric Houston. That's it. So we're looking at this class of 2026 with 6 defensive linemen. That class had 1. So you've got some old dudes that you hope they stay, like Kenyatta, and then you go down to the second-year guys like Ziggy Grady and Epi Satanile. There's a big lack of experience, and now you've got to pay some guys on the defensive line. In fact, I think that is the biggest need for the Tier 1A money. If, let's say, I can go 3 guys deep with big money guys, I'm taking 2 of those guys on the defensive line. That's where I think you need it the most on this roster. On the offensive side of the ball, Tyler Bowen in year number 1. Year number 1, he's going to lose Marcus Johnson. He's going down to Arkansas. Charlie Dickey most likely stays with him. How did Tyler Bowen do in year number 1? I think they made some good decisions. I think they made some not so good decisions. I would have loved to see Ian Moore play more. I thought he was excellent against Wisconsin when Phil Daniels was out. He played right tackle that game. I thought he certainly earned to at least do a little bit of a rotation type deal like they've been doing at guard for 2 years. Not sure why we never saw that. Did not see Ian Moore again until against Miami. And he came in against Miami and proved once again that he's a dog. I feel great about him now. Phil Daniels was a bit of a revelation. Didn't seem like he was a guy who could start. Looked like he was going to need another year of development, but he comes in and he starts, and he did pretty damn good. He did good. If you're not going to bring in any big-time transfers to this line, and if you can get Saraveld to stay, I think Hinsman's staying, Luke is staying. When you look at right tackle and you look at right guard, I don't know if the best system, and I said it after Wisconsin, is to put Ian at tackle and move Phil Daniels to right guard. He's not good in space, but he's a road grading run blocker. And to me, that's a great fit. It's a great fit, and it's the best you got with the personnel on the line right now. That's without bringing in anybody. But, if they do, the more the merrier, sure. As far as the recruiting class, you got 4 Ohio dudes and 1 3-star from Arizona. That's who he brought in. However, 2 of those Ohio dudes, Sam Greer and Max Riley, very high-level prospects. So you don't want to discount that. And it was an abbreviated class. But you want to see more in class number 2 out of Tyler Bowen. As far as the coaching itself, not good enough. Not good enough the last couple of games, that's for sure. But year number 1, a lot of people have said they want Tyler Bowen fired. Not good enough. And why did Ryan Day hire a guy who hasn't been an offensive line coach for 10 years? I just got a lot of trust in him. He's just a very intelligent guy, and I just feel like he'll get it together. Tough to want to pull the trigger on somebody after 1 year. Carlos Lachlan at running backs coach brings in transfer CJ Donaldson in the portal. And when we look around Donaldson's level in the portal, guys that kind of cost the same. You could have had Kewan Lacey. You could have had Ahmad Hardy. Big miss there, right? You could have picked better, but you did get some value out of CJ Donaldson. Just wasn't the best choice. James Peoples, can't really put that on him. He wasn't ready, and he wasn't his recruit. He did recruit Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, who were ready to go. He had them ready to go. Bo rushed for 1,000 yards, just the 5th Ohio State freshman to do that. Isaiah, the best on the team at forcing missed tackles, lacks that breakaway speed, but a really effective back who's going to continue to be an effective back here at Ohio State. And you get local layup in this class, Favor Aki and Legend Bay, who is not sure how much we're going to see him as a running back, but Locke led the charge recruiting him. And then you got Keenan Bailey, who brought in Max Clare as a transfer, developed Will Kazmarek from year 1 to year 2. That got a lot better. Nate Roberts was his big commit in the class of 2025, and Nate ended up having to play half of his snaps at fullback. Now, I think Nate's a dude. And I think there's a lot of people who have knocked Nate this year because of the fullback stuff. This is a guy just doing what his team asks of him. He's not a fullback. Did his best. I think when he's a full-time tight end, everybody's going to really like him. Jelani Thurman, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Jelani Thurman, other than, there was certainly some practice, some attention issues. He's definitely a guy who played much better than Bennett Christian when he was out there on the field, but could not jump him on the depth chart. Keenan Bailey did not get his top target this year, so he brings in local Nick Latour, and he'll try to get his top target in this class of 2027, Brock Williams, who's a top 3 tight end. Personally, when we look at Ohio State and how they spend their money on recruits and in the recruiting class, I am not interested ever in spending money on a top 5-star tight end. They cost just as much money as any other position, and I think you're way better off re-upping in the portal from the tight end from Ohio and getting yourself a Will Kazmarek than getting a 5-star tight end. It's just not something that I think is a sound investment when you only get 3 or 4 of those top tier guys out of a recruiting class. That's my opinion on that one. So I'm happy with Nick Latour. I'm happy with the Brody Lennons of the world. I'm good with all that. I'm also a big fan of Keenan Bailey. I just don't want to see him call the offense. Billy Fessler, he is an official accountable coach, the quarterback's coach. I think he did a pretty good job with Julian, but when the bullets are flying, Julian was not ready. And I'll tell you straight up, man, it's 2026. Ryan Day, after the Michigan game, said his favorite play of Julian's was a scramble that he made for a first down. I need a quarterback who has at least some threat to scramble. There were some opportunities for Julian to pick up a first down in the playoffs, and he threw it away. And that cannot happen. And that only happens if it's not being coached, that it's not just recommended for you to do this. This is a mandatory thing if you want to play quarterback here. If you want to play quarterback here, you're going to go run and pick up a first down. I'll teach you how to protect yourself, but you have got to do it. You got to. And I know he can because I've seen it in his high school film. I was excited for it as a prospect, knowing that he was a guy who could scramble. We saw it in his first spring game, 20 yards right down the middle of the field. I don't know what happened from then to fast forwarding a year later, and he's playing against Miami with these massive, fast guys running all around him, and he sees a gap, and he decides, I'm not going to take it. Drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts. But the offense cannot function in college football. You cannot make it that easy on the defense. And that's on Billy Fessler, and that's on Ryan Day, man. They have got to coach this into their quarterbacks. I don't think it's a situation anymore like it used to be, where Day was telling them they couldn't do it, because I don't think he would say that was his favorite play in the Michigan game if that was the case. So that brings us to the new wide receivers coach, Cortez Hankton, a wide receiver by trade from Southern University. Like I said, undrafted free agent, 6 years in the NFL, and ends up starting off at some little school. Then he makes it to Vanderbilt. He's 44 years old. And shortly after Vanderbilt, gets hired by Georgia. Spends 2018 to 2021 at Georgia as their wide receiver coach, passing game coordinator. 2022 heads back to Louisiana to take that same job at LSU. And the last 2 years, he was promoted to the co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach of a disgusting offense at LSU. But he was a guy nonetheless getting promoted. Being promoted is a good thing. So a dude from Louisiana, you'd expect he'd be a very good recruiter. Ohio State, up until this cycle, had not pulled any commit out of the state of Louisiana since Jonathan Wells and Nader Abdullah in my lifetime. And then they're able to go get Blaine Bradford, whose brother plays at LSU, and Darius McKinley, whose brother plays at LSU. Two of the most impressive recruitments I've ever seen from the Buckeyes. And you get 3 dudes from Alabama in the last 2 cycles, 2 from Louisiana this cycle. And officially, Ohio State has there are no doors closed off. You can get them from anywhere now. But we talk about LSU. It's the other school that boasts that they are a wide receiver university. And different than the state of Ohio, they have a lot of wide receiver talent. When he came into LSU, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. were already there. He didn't do much to develop them. So he was not responsible for them. He can't really claim them. Though I've heard some people try to give him those guys. That's not the case. But he was responsible for a couple of big time recruitments. George Pickens, that was a monster win. But in his career, with like 30 total receivers who have committed to him, just 6 top 100 players, 6 top 100. That's not great. It's certainly not great. Got Dylan Bell out of Georgia, Ladd McConkey, so developed some guys that weren't super highly rated into big time wide receivers. Obviously was able to land DeCorian Moore and Tristan Keys, a great number 1 wide receiver in 25, a top 3 wide receiver in 26, but LSU wouldn't support him with those, but he did get each of their commitments. So I think he can get in on big time commitments, right? He can get in on them as long as he has the support. I feel like when we look at the just 6 top 100 kids in his history, 50% of his guys have been 3 stars out of 30. I don't think he got a lot of support from specifically Brian Kelly. I think Brian Kelly's directive to him was because 9 out of his 12 guys were from Louisiana. I think his directive was, we got good enough wide receivers in Louisiana. Just stay here, save the money, and get them from home. We're going to go spend that money elsewhere where we need it. So pretty sure that is the situation with Cortez. But all in all, I like the hire. And I like I said, I trust Day with his hires. He's been on fire. He's been on fire. The only one that there's any question mark on now, and it's only because of the way the season ended, is Tyler Bowen. But my personal feel, that'll turn around. So waiting for this offensive coordinator hire, and I hope it comes sooner than later. And I certainly hope that it is not an internal hire. Now that I have rambled on for like 50 minutes without including any of you guys in the show, let me go to your comments and see if anybody is, well, we got a lot of comments. Hey guys, what's going on? Aaron right off the rip with a heater. He thinks we need to start Sam Greer at right tackle, a true freshman, and Ian Moore at left tackle. Look, Sam's a dude now. Sam is 6'7", 320, and lean. Geigerflea says, Matt Patricia's post is very concerning. I've not seen this post. Can someone share this post with me? I'm with you, Aaron. If you can find a way to take over that position and move Saravel to guard, I like that as well. Thomas Ridley says, agree. Again, it was wasted talent because there is no creativity with the coaching staff. It's just all vanilla. Nathan agrees with me. Facts. Not necessarily a runner, but mobile. Yeah. You've got to be able to scramble. You've got to. Lost Buckeye really hates that Lincoln is gone. Thought they should have played him versus Miami to force Miami to defend a running quarterback. CJ would have lit these teams up with JJ and Tate. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Totally agree, Chuck. That was a big difference in the Miami game. Beck ran when he needed it and Sand doesn't. And that's just it. Beck, that's not an athlete, but he can do it when he needed to do it. Wasn't afraid to do it. DiLorenzo says Donaldson ran straight up and down, had no vision or breakaway speed. And you will Thomas says, Chuck, I disagree with you concerning Donaldson. If you used according to his strengths, he would have continued to earn those short yardage. The problem was the coaches didn't know how to use it consistently. Yeah, we'll agree to disagree. I think he was a lousy short yardage back on top of everything else that he wasn't too good at, but a really nice guy. John Alvarez says, remember it took the players calling day out for the Michigan game for the Michigan game plan to coach aggressively. And that's true. That's true. I wish that okay. Thoughts on the Matty P post. What's this post, man? You guys got to let me know what the post is when I'm on the show here live. Matt Patricia. Is it a goodbye? Did he give a goodbye? Oh my gosh. The first thing that came up was me reading the Matt Patricia post. Yeah, I can't find it. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure you guys probably told me here at the bottom here. Fact. No play calling head coach has won the Natty. Day needed to swallow his pride and get Chip back for the last 3 games. Y'all know if Turbo can't block in practice, even though he's the speed guy, he won't get any playing time. Richie sent Patricia's post to me on Twitter. Where the hell is it at? Here we go, Richie. Okay, I got it. Okay, Matt Patricia posts a picture of him and his family, and he says, grateful, thankful, all the emotions, impossible to put it into words what this season has meant to me. Buckeye Nation, you are beyond compare. On behalf of my entire family, thank you for welcoming us with open arms. You made this season a joy from start to finish. Yeah, that's concerning. Not definitive, right? Not definitive, but concerning. I'm with you guys. That is concerning for sure. But I'm also with Ethan. NFL coordinators, keep them coming. Absolutely. Bump Killer says, show me one guy who's upped their stock with Walton. Let's be real. IGB did the same stuff he's done the past 2 years. They just didn't call it as much this year. No real progression in that room. I will agree with you that it is that Walton has been, I don't want to say, he hasn't gotten much criticism and maybe gotten a little bit more praise than he deserved because things were so lousy when he took over, and he did straighten it out. I'll agree with you there. Yeah, the corners played back way too far. That was just, I don't understand what was going on there. I certainly could have hit some of those wide receivers. I Exist thinks that Walton is overrated. Yeah, I'd agree. But only because he's so highly rated. I don't think he's not good. I think he's good. I just don't agree with there are some people, like, if you question anything about Walton, they're like, what? He's the GOAT. Nah, man, come on now. Ease up here. Matt G would be the new defensive coordinator, according to Lexus. Chaz visiting tomorrow? Yes, he is. Sue, I'm with you, Sue. I think it's just obnoxious. Sue brings up, I hate that we don't get to hear from the coaches till like spring. They should have to give a presser after the portal closes to provide an autopsy of the season and answer a few questions. What's wrong with that? And, like Sue, I say this as a fan, not because I used to say this before I was a guy who went to the press conferences, right? I'm saying this as a fan. Like, I would say this and people would be like, screw those guys. And they'd be talking about like the reporters, the beat guys. Like, it's not for the beat guys. It's for us. It's for us who want to hear from them. They're just the guys that are reporting it. But yeah, I'm with Sue 100% here. Thank you so much, Austin, for the super chat. Austin says On Three has us at 95% chance to get one Mr. Chaz Coleman. Juck, how is the Chaz Coleman recruiting going? I think it's going well. I think it's looking well. And I think that there's a lot of people who were counting us out. They were counting us out. What they didn't realize is, look, either way, whether the Buckeyes got Chaz Coleman or not, they were going to get an excellent defensive end out of this portal. So whether it was him, whether it was the kid from Florida, they were going to get one. They knew that was money that had to be spent, and it was going to happen. Here's my thoughts on Matty P. He's not meant to be a head coach. He didn't do well in Detroit. He'd be great as an NFL DC, but he excels at OSU and can utilize what he wants. Yes, much opportunities, but much better in college. Are we getting Chaz? Oh, I want Keon Keeley. Yeah, Keon Keeley really played great at the end of the year. Walt definitely creates rhymes. Aaron wants DeAndre Moore. Listen, I would love DeAndre Moore, but I don't want them to spend money on DeAndre Moore and then get like an average big man on the defensive line, right? The middle of that defensive line, I want that to be the guy that gets a big one, right? A big chunk of money. Like let's say, for instance, DeAndre Moore's a top 5 wide receiver. Do I want a top 5 wide receiver invested in instead of a top 5 defensive tackle? Because if one of them's top 5, the other is going to be like, the 30th ranked guy. No, give me the 30th ranked wide receiver in the top 5 defensive tackle. I think there's probably money to get like 3 top tier guys. And if one of them is a slot receiver, when you've already got Brandon Ennis, who's serviceable, and who knows, maybe gets beat out by Phil Bell or Brock Boyd, I just think it's a bad way to spend money. Though I like him as a player a lot. Bump says we're in a bad spot on defense. If we're going to have average Riley Pettijohn-sized linebackers, you need space eaters. I think I agree with you on the size, but I think that why can't we have both? I agree with you on the size, but Riley's an exception to the rule because he's a pretty freaky linebacker. Why can't we have both? You can have both. Here's what I'm saying. If you got 3 tier 1A guys, there is no scenario where, in my book, I want them to spend one of those on a position where you already got a guy who's a serviceable starter at a position where I don't need a stud. I'm so sick of money being pumped into the wide receiver room and neglected elsewhere. That's what I'm saying. If you got 3 top tier 1 guys, I want a stud offensive lineman, and I want a stud edge, and I want a stud defensive tackle. Like, sexy wide receivers are great. We've had all more than anybody else, right? Doesn't always work out well for us. You know what I mean? I don't want to go play a Miami game again with all the sexy wide receivers on the sideline. Matt thinks that the offense needs an overhaul with philosophy and play calling. Yeah, I'm with you there, buddy. I'm with you. Brandon Ennis is as disappointing as CJ Donaldson. I'm absolutely with you. No doubt about it. But if Max Clare's back, I don't need a stud slot wide receiver because I've got a stud pass catching tight end. I want an upgrade in that position. It's just not worth the money instead of defensive tackle, defensive end, offensive lineman. I'm with you on the Wisconsin linebacker, bro. He's a stud. Juck, here's one for you. What the hell is not going on with the Armstrong twins? Lots of hype, but no playing time. They entered the transfer portal. Did you know that? They entered the transfer portal. So here's the thing. There are a lot of big guys that get pushed into football, but they don't really love football, but they stay in football because it is a way that they can attain things, right? And, I'm a Northeast Ohio guy. They played at St. Ed's. I've talked to guys that played against them. I've watched them play a lot in high school. I watched guys that were 220-pound dogs that love football, destroy them. I don't think they ever loved football. That's just my impression. And we saw quickly Jake Cook and Javon McFadden and Carter Lowe in last year's. They all three of those guys jumped both the twins like immediately. So they were never going to play. We need speed. Love JJ, but a 6'3", 225 wide receiver being your fastest player on the field is a problem. Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you there. Wayne says, Juck, the Chaz Coleman deal is now done. I'm from Niles, Ohio. I watch Harding football all the time and know a ton of people in the area. Chaz is going to sign tomorrow. Grab that Matty P pencil and write it. Thank you, Wayne. Guys, Wayne has announced it. Chaz is done. We can celebrate. Wayne, I will start my video as soon as we're done with this. The official Chaz has signed video, and I will schedule it to release. That way, as soon as he does announce, I can have it done, and everybody's going to be like, damn, Juck knew ahead of time. And I'm going to be like, yo, Wayne told me he's from Niles, and that's what it is. Yeah. Jeremiah Smith is on nice late night boat in Miami via his socials an hour ago. You worried about it? I'm not. I'm not worried about it. Nah, man, I know that people have been messing around. So I did this video, right? I did this video yesterday, and I'm bringing up these graphics. Where are the graphics at? Let me show you what I'm bringing up. So I'm bringing up these depth chart graphics that I made, right? And I'm bringing these graphics up. And one of the things I say is, unless Jeremiah Smith goes to Miami, and I do this look like making fun of people who were saying this, but I brought up the graphic too early and people didn't see me do the sarcastic look. So I'm going through my comments and people are like yelling at me for saying Jeremiah Smith is going to Miami. Like, what are they even talking about? Did I not see my sarcastic look? And I watched the video back and no, I have one of these up. So, so I'm answering everybody furiously. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. It was a poor attempt at humor. I don't think he's going to Miami. That's not what I meant. Are we getting Coy? No, not getting Coy Parrish, which is a bummer. But remember, Matt Guerreri wasn't the one recruiting Coy anyway. So, all right, my friends, I do appreciate you. We have gone a little long tonight, and I've had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with you guys. We will be back Wednesday at 8 p.m. and I will get back in. I'll get into the chat a little earlier on Wednesday at 8 p.m. because we've got a lot going, and this has been fun talking to you guys. So make sure to be here Wednesday at 8. We'll get it on and pop in. We'll have a lot more news to talk about from then to now, and I won't spend the day whining about why I'm so angry, disappointed, irritated, and some such stuff. We need to get some W40 on the chair. That's the microphone stand. But yeah, you're right. That's terrible. I apologize. All right. Appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic evening. Buckeye Huddle out.